Underground. 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 Underground.
Greetings, surface dwellers. My name is Michael, and these are my chthonic musings. Today's video is the third and final part of basic combat for the Dragonbane RPG game. I hope you enjoy it. Melee combat. To attack someone in melee, you generally must be within 2 meters of your target. On the grid map, you need to be positioned in a square adjacent to the enemy, including diagonally. When attacking in close combat, you use the skill that covers the type of weapon you are wielding. Damage. If the attack hits, your weapon determines which dice you should roll to see how much damage you inflict on the enemy. The damage can be increased by your damage bonus in a dragon roll, and decreased by armor. Damage bonus. Your damage bonus is determined by your score in the attribute on which your weapon skill is based, agility or strength. Weapon. You can have up to 3 weapons at hand. Write them down in the weapons section on your character sheet. To attack with a weapon, it must also be drawn. Drawing a weapon kept at hand or exchanging your drawn weapon for another weapon at hand is a free action. Picking up another weapon from the ground or from your inventory costs a regular action. Strength requirement. Some weapons have a strength requirement. If your strength is lower than the requirement, you get a bane on all attacks and parries with that weapon. If your strength is less than half your requirement, you cannot use the weapon at all. Grip. Weapons require either 1 or 2 hands to use. You can only have 1 two-handed weapon or 2 one-handed weapons, including a shield, drawn at the same time. The strength requirement of a one-handed weapon decreases by 3 if you hold it with both hands. Long weapons. An attack with a weapon with the long feature, such as a long spear or lance, can hit enemies up to 4 meters away, 2 squares. With such a weapon, it is also possible to attack past a friendly combatant and hit an enemy on the other side of that person. Prone targets. If you are standing up but your enemy is lying on the ground, your attack gets a boon and inflicts an extra d6 damage. Critical hit. By rolling a dragon when you attack, you score a critical hit. This means that a dragon roll is required to parry or dodge the attack, and that you may choose one of the following effects. You can roll double the amount of dice for the weapon's damage before adding any damage bonus or other bonuses. For example, if you get a critical hit with a broadsword, damage 2d6, and have a damage bonus of d4, the damage for the critical hit is 4d6 plus d4. Or, you can immediately perform a second attack against another enemy. This additional attack is a free action. Or, armor has no effect against the attack as it finds a gap or weak spot. This effect can only be chosen if the attack deals piercing damage. Optional rule below. Optional rule. Damage types. There are 3 types of damage: slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning. The damage types of various weapons are listed in the weapon tables in Chapter 6. Some weapons, such as swords, can inflict both slashing damage and piercing damage. You must state whether you stab or slash before rolling the die. The damage type influences the effectiveness of armor, and monsters can be resistant to certain types of damage. Optional rule: shove. If you hit an enemy with a melee attack and your strength damage bonus is equal to or higher than your opponent's damage bonus, you can choose to shove the enemy up to 2 meters in any direction to an adjacent square if you are using a grid map, in addition to doing damage. This movement does not count toward the enemy's total movement in the round and does not trigger free attacks from anyone. Monsters cannot shove or be shoved. Optional rule: demon roll in melee. If you roll a demon when attacking in melee combat, you miss your target and cannot push the roll. You might also suffer an additional mishap. Roll on the table below. If the result is unreasonable, the GM decides the effect. In the Dragonbane rulebook, the table, D6 table of demon roll effects, melee effects, immediately follows. Hitting inanimate objects. If you hit a non-living object, like a door or a lock, you hit automatically. Only roll for damage. Inanimate objects often have an armor rating, however. Page 50. Parrying. When hit by an attack in close combat, you can choose to parry the attack with a drawn weapon or shield. Note that you cannot draw a weapon to parry, as free actions can only be performed on your own turn. You must declare that you are going to parry before the attacker rolls for damage. You cannot parry unarmed. It is also impossible to parry and dodge the same attack. You can parry while prone. When parrying, you roll against your skill level for the weapon. Reaction. Parrying is a reaction, as it breaks the initiative order. It replaces your regular action, and you must immediately flip your initiative card. This means that you cannot parry if you have already performed your action in the round. But see the heroic ability Defensive. Durability. If your parry succeeds, the enemy's attack hits your weapon or shield, and you suffer no damage. However, if the damage exceeds your weapon's durability, the weapon is damaged and cannot be used until it is repaired with a crafting roll. Shield. If you have a shield drawn, you can parry with it instead of your weapon. There is no skill for shields. Instead, you can use any strength-based melee skill, i.e. any of them except knives and staves, to parry with a shield. Piercing damage. Piercing attacks can never damage a parrying weapon or shield. Monsters. As a rule, monster attacks, page 83, cannot be parried unless otherwise specified. Optional rule: parry movement. When successfully parrying an attack, you can move both yourself and the enemy 2 meters, 1 square, in any direction. These movements follow the usual rules, but do not count toward anyone's movement in the round and trigger no free attacks from anyone. Rolling a dragon when parrying. If you roll a dragon when parrying, you immediately perform a counterattack on your opponent, an automatic hit with your weapon that cannot be dodged or parried. This does not apply if the attacker rolled a dragon as well. In that case, you need a dragon just to parry and do not get a counterattack. Dodging. As an alternative to parrying, you can try to dodge when hit by an attack. You cannot parry and dodge the same attack. You must choose one or the other. You can dodge while prone. You must declare that you are dodging before your opponent rolls for damage. Roll for evade. On success, you evade the attack and take no damage. On a failure, you are hit by the attack. Reaction. Dodging is a reaction and, like parrying, requires that you have not already performed your action in the round. Once you have dodged, your action in the round is spent and you must flip your initiative card. Movement. On a successful dodge, you may, if you want, move up to 2 meters in any direction. This movement does not trigger free attacks from anyone. Monsters. As a rule, monster attacks, page 83, can be dodged unless otherwise specified. Optional rule: special attacks. In addition to simply trying to hit the enemy, there are a few special attacks that you can use in melee combat. You must always declare that you are using a special attack before rolling the attack. Several special attacks are resolved by opposed rolls. When rolling for an NPC without the skill in question, the GM rolls against the default skill level 5. Page 33. Find weak spot. If your weapon is piercing, you can try to find a gap in the enemy's armor or natural armor. You get a bane on the attack, but if it hits, the enemy counts as armorless. Topple. You try to topple an enemy to the ground instead of inflicting damage. This is handled with an opposed roll between your skill level and the weapon you are using and the enemy's evade. If your weapon has the toppling feature, you get a boon. The attack counts as an action for you, but not for your opponent. It cannot be dodged or parried. An effective way of using this special attack is to work together with another person. If you topple the opponent, your friend can attack the prone enemy before they can get up. Disarm. You try to disarm your enemy instead of inflicting damage. This is handled with an opposed roll between your and the enemy's skill level in the weapons you are using. The attack counts as an action for you, but not for your opponent. It cannot be dodged or parried. If the enemy is holding the weapon with both hands, you get a bane. If you succeed, the weapon lands d6 meters away in a direction of your choice. Picking up a weapon from the ground is an action. Disarm does not work on shields or natural weapons. Grapple. You try to grapple a humanoid enemy instead of inflicting damage. This is handled with an opposed roll between your brawling and the enemy's brawling. The attack counts as an action for you, but not for your opponent. It cannot be dodged or parried. If your attempt fails, you fall to the ground. If it succeeds, both of you fall to the ground and the enemy is trapped in your grip. As long as you maintain your grip, the enemy can neither move nor perform any action that requires body movement, except trying to break free. Doing so is an opposed roll between your brawling and the enemy's brawling. The roll is a free action for the enemy, but not for you. While maintaining your grip, you are also unable to move or perform any action that requires body movement, except break. This counts as an unarmed attack with a boon that cannot be dodged or parried. Releasing the enemy is a free action. Ranged combat. To use a ranged weapon, it must first be drawn, free action, just like in melee. You should preferably be positioned over 2 meters from your target, i.e. not in an adjacent square on the map. Standing 2 meters away or less gives you a bane on your attack. Roll against the skill for the weapon you are using. For throwing weapons, use the same skill as for melee attacks, such as knives or spears. If the attack hits, the weapon determines which dice you should roll to see how much damage it inflicts. The damage can be increased by damage bonus and a dragon roll, or decreased by armor. Optional rule: demon roll in ranged combat. If you roll a demon when performing a ranged attack, you miss your target and cannot push the roll. You may also suffer an additional mishap. roll on the table below. And in the rulebook immediately following this is the D6 table for such demon roll mishaps in ranged combat. Damage bonus. You get a damage bonus for ranged weapons, just as in melee, but note that crossbows do not give you a damage bonus. Range. The weapon tables on pages 74 and 75 specify the range of various weapons, that is, the maximum distance in meters at which the weapon can be used effectively. You can fire at targets up to twice the listed range, but then you get a Bane. Critical hit. Rolling a dragon when performing a ranged attack results in a critical hit, which means that it can only be dodged if the opponent also rolls a dragon. You may also choose one of the following effects. You can have your weapon's damage doubled, excluding the damage bonus and other bonuses. Roll twice as many dice as normal and add them up. For example, a critical hit with a longbow inflicts 2d12 damage. Or, armor and natural armor have no effect against the attack, as it hits a gap or weak spot. This effect can only be chosen if the attack deals piercing damage. Optional rule. Parry and dodge. Parrying a ranged attack requires a shield. It works the same way as in melee combat, except that rolling a dragon does not give you a counterattack. You can dodge ranged attacks just like melee attacks. Obscured targets. If your view of the target is partially obscured by an object or person, no matter if it is a friend or foe, you get a Bane on your attack. On a grid map, you can shoot past a person standing between you and your target, but with a Bane. If your target is completely out of sight, perhaps hiding behind a wall, you cannot shoot at it at all. If you are playing without a map, the GM decides whether your line of sight is partially or completely blocked. Damage. Life as an adventurer is hard and risky. The rewards may be great, but the only thing you know for sure is that you will suffer all sorts of damage along the way. Taking damage reduces your hit points, HP. Armor. Wearing leather, chainmail, or plate armor can protect your body from damage. Equipping or unequipping armor counts as an action in combat. The armor you are wearing should be written down in the armor section on your character sheet and does not count towards your encumbrance. You can only wear one suit of armor at a time. Some armors can give you a Bane on certain skill rolls or restrict your movement. Armor rating. An armor's effectiveness is determined by its armor rating. Whenever you take damage from a physical attack, subtract the armor rating from the damage. If the damage from a melee attack is completely negated, the attacking weapon itself suffers the damage instead, which might break the weapon. See durability on page 46. Helmets. Your armor can be combined with a helmet, which can further increase your armor rating. Equipping or unequipping a helmet counts as an action. Helmets can also give you a Bane when using certain skills. Optional rule. Damage types and armor. If the optional rule for damage types, page 45, is used, the following rules apply. Leather and studded leather gain a +2 bonus to their armor rating against bludgeoning damage. Chainmail gets a +2 bonus to its armor rating against slashing damage. If the type of damage is not stated, the armor has its normal effect. Death. If your HP reaches 0, you drop to the ground and risk dying. You cannot move or perform any actions except trying to rally. Below. Death roll. On your turn in each subsequent round, you must make a death roll, a roll against your constitution. The death roll cannot be pushed if that optional roll is used. Record the results of your death rolls on your character sheet. After 3 successful death rolls, you recover D6 hit points. After 3 failed death rolls, your player character dies. Rolling a dragon counts as 2 successful death rolls, and rolling a demon counts as 2 failures. If the combat ends, keep counting rounds until all death rolls have been made. Additional damage. If you suffer additional damage while at 0 hit points, it automatically counts as a failed death roll. Rally. Another player character within 10 meters and earshot can persuade you to rally and keep fighting despite having 0 hit points. This counts as an action. If you rally, you can continue acting as normal, but must keep making death rolls as described above. You can even try to rally yourself, rolling against your will with a bane instead of persuasion. Saving life. When you have 0 hit points, another person next to you can save your life with a successful healing roll. Without bandages, they get a bane to the roll. This counts as an action. Multiple attempts are allowed. If the roll succeeds, you stop making death rolls and recover D6 hit points. You cannot save your own life this way, even if you have rallied. See above. Additional healing rolls have no effect once you are no longer at 0 hit points, except when resting. See page 52. Magic can save lives as well. Instant death. You don't record negative hit points, but if a single attack reduces your hit point to a negative score equal to your full hit points, your player character dies instantly. Time to honor the fallen adventurer and create a new one. 0 hit points for NPCs. When an NPC reaches 0 hit points, no death rolls are made. The GM decides whether the person lives or dies. However, an NPC dies if hit by an instantly killing attack, just like a player character. And so, my friends, until I resurface, may your successes be many and your failures be memorable.